They broke into his apartment without a warrant, froze his benefits, labeled a decorated Marine a public threat just for asking why veterans were being forced out. But they didn't know he kept every document, every recording, and he wasn't done fighting. This is the true story of a veteran Marine who turned the tables on a corrupt system and forced a courtroom to fall silent with nothing but the truth. Believe silence is betrayal? No, our veterans deserve more than parades. Then stay. You belong here. Comment where you're watching from. Share this with someone who still believes in honor. Subscribe now. Tomorrow's story goes even deeper. He woke before the sun. Even after all these years, the habit never left him. The same 4:45 a.m. rise, the same silent kitchen routine, the same black coffee, no cream, no sugar, just how they used to serve it in the tent barracks outside Fallujah. Cole Ramirez stood in his tiny kitchenette, listening to the gurgling hum of the old coffee maker and the distant hum of the freeway that framed the skyline of Los Angeles. The city never really slept, but it paused, breathed, waited for chaos or calm no one ever knew. His apartment sat on the 4th floor of a veteran housing block in East LA, a building that had aged with the men inside it. The walls were lined with faded paint and bulletin boards pinned with lost dog posters and support group flyers. But to Cole, it was sacred ground. This was where men like him landed when the country no longer had use for them, but they still needed somewhere to exist. Quietly, privately, with the ghosts they'd brought home. He poured himself a mug and stepped out onto the narrow balcony. Below him, the city glimmered under sodium streetlights. Trash bins sat full from the weekend. A police cruiser idled across the block, engine purring. Nothing suspicious, just presence. Cole watched it like he always did, not with paranoia, but with awareness, discipline. Inside, a soft rustling came from the room down the hall. His 13-year-old grandson, Mateo, always woke just before 6, pretending not to need help, but always checking if Cole was still in the house. The boy was the only blood Cole had left. His daughter, Mateo's mother, died 4 years ago in a car accident. The boy's father? Gone long before that. Cole never talked about it and Mateo never asked. A knock at the door broke the stillness. 3 sharp raps. Not friendly, not casual. Cole placed his coffee down slowly. The knock came again, this time louder. He walked to the door and opened it just enough to see who was on the other side. Luis! The young building maintenance worker stood there, cap in hand, worry all over his face. "Senor Ramirez, sorry to bother you. You need to come downstairs," he said, voice low. "It's Jim from 3 Billions. The police are here. They're trying to take him." Cole's eyes sharpened. Jim was a Vietnam vet. 40 years of nightmares and a medical file as thick as a Bible. He lived on disability, rarely spoke, but never caused trouble. Cole stepped into his boots without a word, threw on a jacket, and followed Luis down the stairwell. What he saw in the lobby stopped him cold. 2 police officers stood with a 3rd man in plain clothes, likely from the property management company. Jim was pressed up against the wall, shaking. His face was pale. A duffel bag lay at his feet, half-zipped, as though someone had tossed it together in seconds. "You need a warrant," Cole said, voice calm but firm. One of the officers turned. Young, too clean, a little too confident. "He's violating occupancy terms. Management's terminating his lease due to behavioral threats," the man in the suit said. "What threats?" Cole asked. Neighbors reported shouting. "Disturbances," the man replied, avoiding eye contact. "Shouting?" Cole glanced at Jim, who still hadn't spoken. "That's PTSD, not aggression." One of the officers stepped forward. "Sir, unless you live here." "I do live here," Cole interrupted, locking eyes with him. "And I know the law." "You need a court order to evict someone with a disability, especially a veteran." The officer's jaw clenched. We're just doing our job." "No, you're trying to scare him out without paperwork." The second officer, taller and clearly agitated, stepped between them. "You don't get to tell us how to do our jobs, old man. Step back." The word hit like a slap. Old man. Cole didn't flinch. He simply looked at the badge number on the officer's chest, memorized it, then calmly stepped in front of Jim. "You're not taking him without a warrant." The hallway grew heavy with tension. Matteo had wandered halfway down the stairs barefoot, eyes wide as he watched his grandfather, stoic and still like a mountain facing a storm. Cole flicked his gaze toward the boy and gave a nearly imperceptible nod, the kind only a military man would understand. It meant, "Go back, I've got this." Matteo obeyed. The younger officer stepped back, perhaps sensing something shift, but the taller one wasn't done. He reached for the duffel bag at Jim's feet and tossed it toward the door. "That's not your property," Cole said. "We're removing his belongings as part of the process, which doesn't exist without due process," Cole snapped, voice sharper now. "You want him out? Get a court order. Otherwise, this is unlawful entry and intimidation." The officer narrowed his eyes. "Listen, tough guy, don't make this harder than it has to be." Cole didn't blink. "You've already made it hard by showing up without cause." Luis stood frozen near the stairwell, one hand gripping the railing. Other tenants had begun to peek through cracked doors, faces lined with worry, holding phones but not courage. Everyone in the building knew Cole. They also knew he never raised his voice, never lost control, and that made this moment terrifying. The officer stepped forward suddenly, his voice now a low growl. "Back off, or I'll arrest you for obstruction." Cole didn't move. "Then arrest me." For a moment it looked like he would, but then the plainclothes man stepped in, waving his hand awkwardly. "It's not worth the paperwork. Let's go. We'll come back with a formal notice." The officers lingered for another beat, clearly reluctant to walk away without asserting dominance. But in the face of Cole's unwavering stare, they eventually turned and exited through the front door, slamming it behind them. Only when the echo died did anyone exhale. Luis approached Cole slowly. "They'll be back." "I know," Cole said, "and next time with papers, then we'll be ready." Jim slumped to the floor, whispering something unintelligible. Cole crouched beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You're safe, for now." From the top of the stairs, Matteo whispered, "Is he okay?" "He will be," Cole replied. "Come back inside." They all did. That night, after putting Matteo to bed, Cole sat in his kitchen with the lights off, watching the red-blue reflections of a passing patrol car flicker against the window blinds. He didn't trust the silence that followed confrontation. Too often, it was a lie. He pulled a notepad from the drawer and wrote down the badge numbers he remembered. Beneath it, he scribbled the timestamp, 5:49 a.m., lobby. Incident with Jim 3B. He'd learned the hard way that details mattered. The next morning, he went to check the building's security footage. Luis led him to the small maintenance room that housed the servers. It smelled of old paint and dust. "We record everything for 72 hours, Luis explained, booting up the monitor. "It should be here." They fast-forwarded to the time in question. Blank. The feed skipped from 5:43 to 6:02 a.m. "What the hell?" Luis muttered. "Was it deleted?" Luis shook his head. "Only I have admin access, unless..." Cole raised a brow. "Unless someone came in with a warrant?" Luis turned pale. "Or someone inside gave them remote access." Cole folded his arms, staring at the screen. "It wasn't an accident." Luis looked up at him. "What do? "We document everything," Cole said, "and we don't go quiet." He left the room and walked back to his apartment, only to find Matteo sitting at the kitchen table with his phone open. "Grandpa," the boy said, "I posted part of what happened on my story. I didn't get the whole thing, but a few seconds." Cole's stomach sank. "You recorded it?" Matteo nodded. "Yeah, I was scared, but now it's gone. The video. Instagram took it down. Cole took the phone gently, brows furrowed. Did they say why? Violation of community guidelines, Mateo said, but it wasn't violent or anything. Cole stood still, the room suddenly colder. He handed the phone back without a word. Something bigger was moving now. It wasn't just about Jim. It wasn't just about that hallway. It was about the system, and how quickly it could erase the truth when no one was watching. But Cole Ramirez was watching now, and he'd spent his whole life preparing for this kind of fight. 3 days passed, nothing happened, and that's what made Cole more anxious than if something had. Silence was often a cover for preparation, not surrender. The police hadn't returned, not officially, but twice Cole noticed a cruiser circling the block during early dawn. Once it parked across the street for 15 minutes, headlights off, engine running. He didn't mention it to Mateo. The boy had enough weight on his shoulders. But Cole kept writing. Every hour, every name, every shift pattern he noticed. The old military instinct of observation had never left him. He documented the timing of trash pickups, the rotations of patrol cars, the new man who showed up in a maintenance uniform but didn't seem to fix anything. Then on Friday evening, Cole came home from a veterans legal aid clinic to find an official envelope taped to his door. Notice of violation, interference with authorized enforcement activity. It cited him by name, warned of escalating action, threatened eviction. Cole's hands didn't shake as he read. He simply folded the paper once, twice, and placed it in his jacket. Then he went upstairs to check on Mateo, who was reading on the couch with headphones in. The boy looked up and smiled, unaware. Cole smiled back. He wasn't going to let this touch the kid. Not again. The next day, a Saturday, Cole received a voicemail. It was from a blocked number, a male voice, calm, smug, deliberate. Sergeant Ramirez, you've had your moment. Now step aside. This isn't your war anymore. Don't make us remind you who's in charge now. He replayed it 3 times, then deleted it, not because he wanted to forget, but because he'd already memorized it. At 2:40 p.m., Luis came running up the stairs again, banging on the door with urgency. Senor Ramirez, it's happening again. 2D, Mrs. Carter. They're trying to evict her now. Cole didn't ask questions. He moved. Mrs. Carter was 81, a widow of a Korean War veteran. She'd lived in the building longer than Cole. She walked with a cane and still left cookies outside every Christmas. By the time Cole reached the hallway outside her apartment, 3 uniformed officers were already inside. She sat on the couch, confused, holding a paper in trembling hands. Cole stepped into the room. This needs to stop, he said. One officer turned around, instantly recognizing him. Mr. Ramirez, you're not part of this. She's being evicted on a Saturday afternoon with no warning. This is a civil enforcement action authorized by... No court seal, no sheriff's deputy, no legality, Cole said, voice rising just enough to fill the space. Mrs. Carter whispered, I didn't even know what I was signing. They said it was routine. Cole's eyes burned. You pressured her. The officer stepped forward, trying to corral Cole back toward the door. Don't touch me, Cole said. I'm not resisting, but you lay a hand on me, and I will consider that an unlawful use of force. Tension snapped in the air. Down the hall, other tenants gathered. Some filmed quietly. Others just stood there, frozen, watching history and injustice collide in real time. And then a voice pierced the tension. Get your hands off my grandfather! Mateo! He stood at the end of the hall, phone raised, broadcasting live. Everyone's seeing this, the boy said. Right now, you lay a finger on him, the whole world will know. The officer paused. The other 2 looked at each other. Cole raised a hand gently toward Mateo without looking. It's okay. Stay back. Mateo didn't budge. One of the officers muttered, Let's call it in. We don't need this blowing up. They began to withdraw. Mrs. Carter looked at Cole, eyes wide with tears. Thank you. Cole nodded once. Then behind him, the same smug voice from the voicemail echoed from the doorway. "You just don't learn, do you?" Cole turned to see the plainclothes officer from before, the one tied to the property management firm, leaning against the doorframe. "I warned you once. Next time won't be as gentle." Cole stepped closer. "You think intimidation is power, but that's fear, and I stopped fearing men like you a long time ago." The man smiled. "Let's see if your court-appointed lawyer can say the same," and with that he walked away. The footage was gone again. Luis had checked right after the confrontation with Mrs. Carter. The system showed an error retrieving file notification between 2:34 p.m. and 3:02 p.m., the exact window when everything had happened. No video, no audio, just silence and static. "I swear I didn't touch anything," Luis said, pacing in the maintenance room, panic rising. "That segment was there this morning. I checked all the feeds." "I believe you," Cole said calmly. He studied the server rack. 2 blinking lights were missing. A secondary line, normally used for off-site backup, was dark. "They've tapped the secondary stream," he muttered. Luis blinked. "Wait, you mean someone's intercepting the footage? Or someone inside is erasing it before it's ever stored?" Luis cursed in Spanish. "What do we do?" "We don't rely on their systems anymore," Cole said. "We start our own." That night, Cole installed 2 body cameras, one clipped discreetly to his jacket, another embedded inside the hallway smoke detector just outside 3B. He didn't tell anyone, not even Mateo. The next morning, as expected, a new notice arrived, delivered in person this time, by a man in a blazer with a smile too polished to be sincere. "Sergeant Ramirez," he said, extending the envelope, "we're issuing a final warning regarding your continued obstruction and instigation of unrest on the premises." Cole took the paper and read it silently. The man continued, "You're also being reported to the Veterans Affairs Office for misconduct. It could impact your benefits. I just wanted to give you a heads-up, professional courtesy." Cole raised his eyes. "You ever serve?" The man blinked. "Excuse me? In any uniform?" "No, sir, I didn't." "Then don't use words like professional courtesy. You don't know what they mean." The smile faltered. As the man turned to leave, Cole called out after him, "You know why I'm not afraid of you?" He paused but didn't turn around. "Because people like you can only win if men like me stay quiet. And I'm done being quiet." The man left. By Tuesday, Cole's benefits had been officially suspended, pending a disciplinary review by the Department of Veterans Affairs. His bank account showed no deposit. His health card no longer worked. When he called the VA hotline, he was kept on hold for 78 minutes before the line dropped. Mateo noticed his grandfather staring at the rejection letter that night. "Is it about me?" the boy asked. Cole turned to him. "No, it's not about you. Are they doing this because of what I filmed?" Cole paused. He had told Mateo not to worry, but the boy was sharp, too much like his mother. "They're doing this," Cole said slowly, "because I stood up when they expected me to sit down." Mateo nodded. "Then I want to stand too." The next morning, Cole found a note on the kitchen table scribbled in Mateo's handwriting. "I sent the video to someone who helps veterans. Her name's Maya. She's a lawyer." Cole blinked. He reread the note. The boy had taken a chance. That afternoon, Cole got a call from an unknown number. A woman's voice came through, firm, fast, no nonsense. "Mr. Ramirez, my name is Maya Tran. I work with the West Side Veterans Legal Defense Network. I saw the footage your grandson sent. If it's all right with you, I'd like to talk." Cole leaned back, eyes closed for a beat. Maybe the tide was shifting. They'd tried to cut off his money, erase his footage, isolate him and intimidate his community. But they hadn't counted on a 13-year-old boy with a camera and a stubborn streak. They hadn't counted on people still willing to fight the right way. Cole spoke into the receiver. "I'm listening." Maya Tran didn't look like someone who went to war for a living. But in her own way, she did. Standing 5'4" in a navy blazer and Converse sneakers, she had the eyes of someone who had seen systems bend the truth, then fought to pin it back down again. She met Cole on the steps outside a community center in Boyle Heights, not far from his apartment. She arrived early. Cole arrived earlier. He watched her approach, arms folded, expression unreadable. "You're Maya?" She nodded. "I'm sorry to meet you under these circumstances, Mr. Ramirez." "Call me Cole." He shook her hand. It was firm, honest. They sat on a bench beneath a jacaranda tree in full purple bloom. Maya pulled out a legal pad already scribbled over and a small folder labeled CR 1287. Ramirez, Cole. "I've been following your case for 3 days," she began. "We've represented a few tenants from your building before, mostly quietly, but this time it's different. It's coordinated and messy." Cole said nothing. 3 veterans have received simultaneous eviction notices. 2 have already left. 1 is under psychiatric evaluation after police found expired meds in his apartment. "They're trying to clear the whole floor," Cole said. "For redevelopment," Maya nodded. "We traced the management company. It's a shell, tied to a private real estate trust that's lobbying for commercial conversion permits in East LA. By removing low-income tenants, especially veterans, they can claim the building no longer qualifies for protected housing." Cole leaned back. "So we're pawns in a rezoning game?" "No, Cole," Maya said, looking him in the eye. "You're threats because you don't fold." He exhaled. "What they're doing isn't just unethical, it's dangerous," she continued. "Erasing footage, suspending benefits, leveraging intimidation tactics. It's a playbook we've seen before, but not often against someone who knows how to fight back." "I didn't come here to start a war." "Good, because you're already in one." Maya opened the folder. "I've filed an emergency injunction to freeze your eviction. It won't hold forever, but it buys us time. I also reached out to a contact inside the vet. Off the record, she said your benefits suspension was flagged from outside the department, fast-tracked. That never happens unless someone pulls strings." "Let me guess," Cole said. "Not military strings, corporate ones," Maya replied, "with police connections." She handed him a USB drive. "We recovered partial footage from Luis's backup server. He didn't even know it had auto-sync. It shows just enough to discredit the official version, but it's not complete. We'll need more." Cole took the drive. "You still believe in the system?" he asked. "I believe in the fight to make it accountable," Maya said without flinching. "But that fight doesn't happen inside polished courtrooms. It happens in stories, eyewitnesses, patterns, silence broken at the right time." Cole looked away to the city beyond the trees. "I've broken a lot of things in my life," he said. "Bones, walls, men." He paused, "but never silence. Not like this." Later that week, Maya arranged a meeting with an investigative journalist named David Lin, who'd spent years covering police misconduct and gentrification scams across Southern California. They met in the back of a Vietnamese coffee shop in El Sereno. Low light, cheap espresso, and just enough noise to keep eavesdroppers at bay. Cole wasn't thrilled to be there. "I don't talk to the press," he told Maya under his breath. "You won't be talking, you'll be showing." David sat across the table with a laptop already open. His eyes were sharp but not predatory. Not the kind of journalist who hunted clicks, more the kind who hunted ghosts. "I watched the footage," he began. "The cut scenes, the echo in the audio where the timestamp jumps. That's military-grade scrubbing, not just sloppy editing. Someone inside the system is protecting whoever's pulling this off." Cole nodded slowly. David leaned forward. "I also ran the officers' badge numbers you gave Maya. 3 of them show up in multiple cases involving disabled tenants, always as witnesses to erratic behavior. But the reports vanish when challenged. No footage, just statements." "So it's a pattern," Maya said. David nodded. "Worse. It's a program. Internal whispers call it quiet compliance. a handshake between real estate developers and select precincts to encourage relocation of problematic residents, especially in zones slated for commercial rezoning. Cole felt his stomach knot. "And you can prove this?" he asked. David shrugged. "Not yet. But if you're willing to testify and let me document what's happening, we might have a chance to expose it." "I'm not looking for headlines," Cole said. "No one's asking you to be a hero," David replied. "But if they get away with this, they'll come for the next building. And the next." Cole looked down at his calloused hands. "What if they retaliate?" he asked. Maya answered first. "They already are. But now we're watching." That night, back at the apartment, Cole found another envelope. This one wasn't taped to his door. It was slid under it. Inside was a single photograph, grainy, printed in black and white. It showed Cole and Matteo walking together outside the community center. A red 10 was scrawled over Cole's face in marker. No note, no threat. The message was clear. Cole sat down heavily, the photo trembling slightly in his hand. He didn't show it to Matteo. Not yet. Instead, he turned to his bookshelf and pulled out an old wooden box. Military issue, sand-scarred and sealed with a rusted latch. Inside were medals, discharge papers, an American flag folded so tightly it barely breathed. At the bottom, wrapped in plastic, was a single letter. He hadn't read it in years, written by a fellow Marine, killed by an IED in Iraq. "If you make it back and I don't let the quiet kill you. Use what you know, not to fight, to defend. There's a difference." Cole stared at the words, heart pounding. He had kept his silence too long. Tomorrow he would call Maya and say yes, yes to the interview, yes to testifying, yes to fighting the new war, with memory, truth, and the same discipline that once kept him alive in a desert far from home. But tonight he just sat in the dark, watching over a building that had become more than bricks and paint. It had become a line in the sand, and Cole Ramirez was drawing it again. 2 days later, Cole sat in front of a single camera under the buzz of a cheap fluorescent bulb. The backdrop was simple, a white sheet pinned over a bookcase in Maya's office. No flags, no symbols, just truth. David adjusted the frame and checked the levels. Maya stood nearby, watching closely, not as a lawyer, but as someone who understood that this testimony was not just evidence, it was legacy. Cole took a breath. "State your name, please," David prompted. "Cole Ramirez," he said. "Rank and service?" "Staff Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, Iraq and Afghanistan deployments, honorable discharge, 2011. Why are you here today?" Cole looked directly into the camera. "Because the system I once served is being used to intimidate, displace, and silence the very people it promised to protect. Because what's happening isn't isolated, it's institutional. And because if I don't speak, then my silence becomes consent." He recounted everything, from the first knock at Jim's door to the erased footage, from the threats and false notices to the red X on the photo. His tone never wavered, his hands never trembled. When he finished, David didn't say anything. He just nodded and stopped recording. "That was more than enough," he said. Maya looked at Cole. "We'll go public this weekend. A coordinated release, video testimony, legal filings, and a press briefing. We'll flood the story before they can bury it." Cole nodded, then stood to leave. As he reached the door, David said quietly, "You know they might escalate after this." "I'm counting on it," Cole replied, "because it means they're scared." That night, the article dropped. It wasn't just a column, it was an exposé. Inside the war on veterans, the evictions, the erased evidence, and one Marine who fought back. It exploded online within hours. Veteran forums picked it up first, then military wives networks. Then a retired JAG officer reposted it on his LinkedIn with the caption, "This man speaks for thousands of us." By morning, Maya's office had received over 200 voicemails, offers of testimony, legal support, anonymous tips from officers. 2 city council members reached out requesting meetings. 1 federal investigator left a message asking for full documentation. And at 9:42 a.m., Cole received a different kind of visitor. An older man in full marine dress blues stood outside his apartment door. Quiet, tall, stern. Cole opened the door. "Sergeant Ramirez?" "That's me. I'm Colonel Avery, retired. I represent the Honor Guard Network. We saw your video." He held out a crisp white envelope. "What's this?" Cole asked. "A formal citation of recognition for defending the principles of military honor under domestic threat, and a request." Cole raised an eyebrow. "We'd like you to speak at the Memorial Hall this weekend," the colonel said. "Not as a victim, as an example." For a moment, Cole was silent. Then he nodded once. "I'll be there." The hall was packed. More than 200 people filled the folding chairs inside the Veterans Memorial Hall that Saturday morning. Some wore faded uniforms. Others came in flannel, leather, or their Sunday best. A few arrived in wheelchairs, wheeled in by sons or daughters. Cameras lined the back wall, though most of the audience wasn't looking at them. They were looking at him. Cole Ramirez stood behind the lectern, the Honor Guard citation folded in his inside jacket pocket, untouched. He hadn't come for applause. He came for answers. "I served 2 tours overseas," he began, voice steady. "I saw things I don't talk about, not because I can't, but because no one would understand them if they hadn't stood there too. You know what I mean? But what I saw here, at home, in my own city, I understood that real fast." He told them everything again, but this time it echoed differently. With each sentence he saw heads nodding, veterans who'd faced similar eviction notices, widows who'd been asked to sign routine forms, caregivers whose benefits were quietly slashed when they refused to relocate. And when he finished, no one clapped. They stood. One by one, a silent ovation of solidarity. Afterward, as the crowd filtered out, Cole was approached by a man in a dark grey coat, older, clean-shaven, a retired police captain. "I didn't come here to be seen," the man said. "I came to give you something." He handed Cole a flash drive. "This is internal precinct correspondence. They used to CC me on everything, even after I retired. Some of it won't make sense, but if you dig, you'll see it. How they covered tracks, how they picked targets, who signed off." Cole took the drive, nodding. "Why now?" The man looked around. "Because I taught some of those boys. I trained them to serve, not bully. But something changed, and I won't be part of it by staying silent." Cole gave a rare response, a small, genuine smile. "You're not." Later that night, back in Maya's office, they opened the files. Dozens of email chains, policy memos, a folder labeled QCP, Quiet Compliance Protocol. Inside were anonymized reports, coded references to residents, eviction justifications, internal guidance for psychological profiling, and notes on risk containment language for press encounters. Maya leaned back, stunned. This isn't just a corruption case. It's engineered social displacement. David, also present, ran a hand through his hair. "They've industrialized it. Target the vulnerable, remove them quietly, let development roll in." One name appeared again and again. "Deputy Chief Ronald Vexley." Cole pointed to the screen. "That's our Spiter." David nodded. He was the liaison to city housing during the last 3 zoning initiatives. Also has personal investments in 2 of the trusts acquiring veteran-occupied buildings. "We need to bring him in," Maya said. David shook his head. "He'll never talk, but if we push hard enough, someone under him might flip." Cole looked at the names listed in the message chains: lieutenants, patrol captains, analysts, dozens of threads, all traceable. He tapped one name. "Lieutenant Reyes," he said. "She was at my building during Jim's attempted eviction." She hesitated, looked uncomfortable. Maya narrowed her eyes. "Think she's a weak link?" "Maybe," Cole said. "Or maybe she still remembers what the badge was supposed to mean. That week, Maya filed a formal ethics complaint with the city council and launched a motion to delay all eviction proceedings in veteran-designated housing until an external review could be completed. The motion made it into the local news cycle, but the next day, something happened. Jim, the same man they'd saved from being dragged out, was found unconscious in a stairwell. No witnesses, no cameras, a heart condition, the report claimed. Cole stared at the report in silence. "He never had a heart condition," he said flatly. "He was at the clinic last month. Clean bill of health." Maya looked grave. "Are you thinking what I'm thinking? They're scrubbing the loose ends." That night, Cole couldn't sleep. He sat on his balcony, looking out at the city that had grown colder in its silence. The neighborhood that once held backyard barbecues and morning greetings now whispered suspicion and watched from windows. But Cole wasn't alone. Just before midnight, a knock came at the door. He opened it to find Lieutenant Reyes, off duty, wearing civilian clothes, face pale. "I don't have long," she whispered. "But you need to know. They're planning to arrest you. They're going to claim you interfered in a felony investigation tied to Jim." Cole didn't flinch. Reyes looked around, her voice trembling. "I wasn't supposed to tell you, but I saw your boy. And your footage." "And I know this isn't right," Cole nodded. "Then help us prove it." Lieutenant Reyes sat on the worn couch in Cole's living room, nursing a cup of untouched tea. Her hands fidgeted around the rim. She looked younger in civilian clothes, as if the uniform had aged her faster than time. "I have to be careful," she whispered. "I'm already on desk duty. They didn't say it outright, but I know they're watching me." Cole leaned against the wall, arms folded. "Why are you really here?" Reyes exhaled slowly. "Because I didn't sign up to be part of this," she said. "When I joined the force, I believed we were supposed to protect, but ever since Vexley came in, that word's been twisted. Protection became removal, de-escalation became containment, and every time I asked questions, fewer doors opened." She reached into her coat and pulled out a small notepad. "I started logging things," she said. "Incidents that didn't match the reports, evictions that didn't follow code, names of people who were moved and never heard from again." Cole took the notepad, flipping through pages of hurried handwriting. "Dates, times, patrol shifts. What made you start?" She hesitated, then said softly, "My uncle. He was a Marine, lost his leg in Kandahar. 2 years ago he got an eviction notice out of nowhere. They said it was mold remediation, but the building was sold within a month. I couldn't stop it. I didn't know how. But when I saw your story, I knew this was my chance to do something." Maya and David joined them moments later, quietly listening as Reyes explained how the precinct's internal QCP designation was used to tag individuals flagged for non-compliance disruption. Veterans, the disabled, whistleblowers, they file it under public safety, she said, but it's economic targeting, and it's all centralized under one server, accessed through an encrypted terminal at Precinct HQ. "You can get in?" Maya asked. Reyes shook her head. "Not alone. But I know when the tech supervisor runs diagnostics. There's a window, 10 minutes on Wednesday afternoon. If someone on the outside pings the system during that window, we can download a live snapshot without triggering a security alert." David leaned forward. "How do we ping it?" Reyes pulled out a slip of paper. "IP address. Credentials. It won't last forever. Once we hit it, we'll have one shot." Cole looked at Maya. "What happens if it works?" She replied, "If the internal QCP database confirms what we suspect, we'll have hard evidence of premeditated targeting based on protected status, military service, disability, age. That's federal." Cole nodded slowly. "Then we go in." The next 48 hours were a blur of planning. David prepped his servers. Maya cleared her calendar. Reyes arranged a decoy diagnostic ticket to trigger the access window. Cole reluctantly stayed behind, his face already too well known to risk digital fingerprints. Matteo, meanwhile, had found his own role. He'd started a social account under an alias, posting snippets of Cole's speech, quotes from veterans who reached out, side-by-side comparisons of eviction documents from across the city. The account exploded in 2 days, pulling thousands of followers, many of them family members of those caught in similar webs. "You've started something," Cole told him one night. Matteo looked up. "We started something." On Wednesday afternoon, the window opened. David's laptop pinged at exactly 2:42 p.m. "Connected," he said, fingers flying, decrypting. "I'm in the system." A list of case files appeared, hundreds of them, names, addresses, flags. A separate column marked notes contained short codes, QCPA, QCPC, QCPXP. Maya gasped. "They're classifying people by removal priority," she said. EXP is expedited, A is aggressive, C is containment. Cole stepped closer, reading the entries. One name made his blood go cold. Mateo Ramirez, QCPC. Silence fell over the room. Maya whispered, "They flagged your grandson." Cole's jaw clenched. "When?" David checked the timestamp. 3 days ago, after his social account went viral. "They're expanding their reach," Maya said, "and they're getting desperate." Reyes nodded. "This confirms what we feared. They're not just cleaning up, they're hunting threats." Cole didn't speak. He stared at the screen until every line blurred, then sharpened into something colder, more focused. "This ends now." That night he wrote a letter, not to the council, not to the VA, not even to the precinct. It was addressed to the press, a full accounting of everything they'd uncovered, names, files, methods, motives. He signed it, Cole Ramirez, USMC. "I swore to defend this nation against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I still do." By Friday morning, the file had already begun to spread. Maya released it strategically. First to independent media networks known for investigative rigor, then to veteran advocacy groups, legal watchdog organizations, and finally to 3 national outlets with simultaneous embargoes. Within hours, it was trending. Hashtag honor flagged, hashtag veteran targeting, hashtag Ramirez files at 10:07 a.m. A segment ran on national news. A decorated Marine veteran and legal teams have uncovered what appears to be a coordinated program targeting veterans for displacement in Los Angeles. The allegations include document falsification, surveillance misuse, and benefit suppression. The city has not yet issued a formal response. It hit like a bomb. City officials scrambled. Internal Affairs launched a review. 3 officers named in the initial reports were placed on administrative leave. And Deputy Chief Ronald Vexley, who hadn't made a public appearance in over a month, scheduled a press conference. "They're going to try to spin it," Maya warned, watching the screen as Vexley took the podium in a crisp suit and a familiar smirk. "Let them," Cole said. Vexley's statement was a masterpiece of avoidance. He denied knowledge of the QCP program, blamed a few rogue data analysts, and painted Cole's story as tragic but potentially exaggerated for media attention. But what he didn't expect, what no one expected, was what happened 30 minutes later. A second press conference began, not from City Hall, from the front steps of the Veterans Memorial Hall. Cole stood at the podium flanked by Maya, David, Lieutenant Reyes, now fully out in the open, and 3 other veterans who had been displaced. They didn't shout, they didn't chant, they read. Each took a paragraph from the QCP manual, each displayed a document. Cole went last, reading from the original footage transcript. Sergeant Ramirez is non-compliant, aggressive, history of military trauma, recommend accelerated eviction path. He looked straight into the cameras. That's how they describe someone who spent 14 years defending their country. Then he raised the photograph, the one with the red 10th. This is how they mark their threats. Silence, then applause. Not from the crowd, there were no bystanders. From online, from streaming viewers, from thousands of comments flooding in across platforms, echoing one word, enough. That night, as Cole walked home, a police cruiser slowly rolled by, 2 officers inside. They didn't stop, they didn't wave, but they didn't smirk either. They looked away. Cole knew that look. The beginning of retreat. At home, Matteo was waiting with his laptop. "Look," the boy said, "they're investigating the property management company now, and someone leaked a memo. They were planning to turn our building into luxury condos." Cole sat beside him. "You did good," he said softly. Matteo smiled. "We did good." Maya called minutes later. "You need to see this," she said. An anonymous tip had come in. An officer, still active, was ready to testify under oath. He had audio, video, internal meeting logs. "He wants to meet privately first," she added, "but he says he can give us everything we need to take this federal." Cole's voice was steady. "Then we take it there." They scheduled the meeting for Sunday evening. The location, a secure facility provided by a national veteran legal coalition. Cole wouldn't go in blind, not this time. As he closed his front door that night, Cole stopped to look at the hallway. Same cracked tile, same rusted fire extinguisher, but it felt different now. Not because the danger was gone, because the silence was. And in its place, something louder had risen. Not protest, not violence, but honor. The kind that didn't need permission to speak, only the courage to say, "Not here, not anymore." Sunday evening brought an electric tension none of them could shake. The meeting was scheduled for 6:30 p.m. at a secure floor of the downtown Veterans Legal Coalition office. A nondescript building cloaked in legal anonymity. No press, no live streams, no spectators, just Cole, Maya, David, Reyes, and the man they were about to meet, Officer Theo Griggs. Griggs arrived 5 minutes late. Not a dramatic entrance, just the careful pace of a man who'd spent days deciding whether to destroy his career for the truth. He looked worn, the kind of tired that came from carrying secrets too long. He sat across from Cole and said nothing for a moment. Then he spoke. "I knew about the protocol, QCP. I saw it implemented. I heard Vexley explain it in code, captains, but at first I didn't think much of it. Thought it was just another data filter." He reached into his coat and slid over a flash drive. "This is a recording from a command strategy meeting 4 weeks ago. Vexley himself." He outlines the targeting model, the risk factors, even jokes about how fast veterans cave once their benefits get frozen. Maya's eyes went wide. David leaned forward. "You're sure the audio's clean?" David asked. "Crystal," Griggs replied. "And there's more. A memo he drafted, never meant to be archived, accidentally ended up in a shared cloud. I downloaded it before they noticed." He looked at Cole directly. "They planned your eviction 6 months in advance. You were flagged as a community anchor with dissent risk. They assumed if they could silence you, others would fall in line." Cole's face didn't change, but his silence grew heavier. "I didn't sign up for that kind of war," Griggs said quietly, "but watching you speak, watching Reyes step forward, I realized the line had been crossed a long time ago, and we've all been standing on the wrong side." Maya took the drive and nodded. "This gives us enough to escalate to federal court," she said. "Not just a city hearing, a class action civil rights suit. And with Reyes and Griggs, we have law enforcement testimony, firsthand." David was already dialing a contact. Cole rose from his seat. "Then it's time we stop playing defense." The next day, Maya filed a motion for a federal injunction. Attached were 3 sworn affidavits, digital evidence, and full transcripts from the QCP database and the Vexley audio. The documents were made public within hours. The fallout was swift. Deputy Chief Ronald Vexley was suspended pending investigation. The City Council called an emergency session, and by that evening dozens of veterans and housing advocates marched down Sunset Boulevard, not in protest, but in formation, shoulder to shoulder, flags carried by amputees, former corpsmen, widows and teenagers holding signs that read, "Our service, ICE, not a liability. They fought for you. Who fights for them? Honor, not eviction." At the front of the formation walked Cole and Reyes, side by side. When they arrived at City Hall, the crowd was silent. No speeches, no chants. Just a single moment where Cole stepped forward, placed a folded Marine Corps flag on the steps, and saluted. The image went viral within an hour. #Marine Salute trended globally. That night, a federal judge granted the injunction. All QCP-related evictions were frozen. A formal probe was announced. But the war wasn't over, because the system had not just failed the veterans, it had used them. And now, that story was just beginning to unravel. By Tuesday, the cracks in the foundation had turned to fractures. 3 more officers came forward, an internal auditor, a desk sergeant, and a patrol supervisor, each confirming variations of the QCP protocols. Anonymous whistleblower lines were flooded. City Hall became a fortress of meetings, crisis PR calls, and early retirements. But with every confirmation came new resistance. City attorneys attempted to discredit Cole. A leaked memo labeled him as a provocateur exploiting veteran status for political purposes. News outlets sympathetic to the mayor's office began running op-eds suggesting Cole had misinterpreted routine policy enforcement. Others claimed Maya had ties to fringe groups, while Reyes faced threats of decertification. "They're getting desperate," Maya said flatly, slamming another baseless summons onto her desk. "They're cornered," Cole corrected. "Cornered dogs bark." David walked in with new data, this time from a housing oversight committee. Vexley's financial disclosures just went public. He's a silent partner in 8 LLCs that control veteran housing properties across East LA. Maya looked up. "We just proved motive and systemic fraud," David added. "He was enriching himself through the very evictions he orchestrated." But something else came with the documents. Buried in one attachment was a pattern of accelerated evictions tied to a lesser-known federal housing voucher program specifically reserved for disabled combat veterans. Cole read it twice. "They were preying on our wounded," he said. That night, Cole attended a town hall meeting hosted by an independent veterans group. Word had spread fast. Over 300 people showed up, including journalists, legal observers, and families displaced by suspicious removals. A mother of 2 stepped up to the mic. "My husband died in Fallujah," she said. "They told me my building had code violations. When I pushed back, they sent someone to inspect. Next day, I got a final notice with a court date already filled in. We lost everything." The room fell into a thick silence. Then came the second speaker, an Army vet with PTSD who'd lived quietly for years until QCP tagged him as non-compliant after missing a community meeting. "I didn't know silence was a crime," he said bitterly. By the time Cole spoke, the room didn't need convincing. It needed direction. "I'm not here to give you permission to be angry," he said. "You already have that. I'm here to remind you that we took an oath. All of us, and some of us might have thought that oath ended with discharge, but it didn't. It never does." He looked across the crowd. "They counted on our silence, our shame, our fatigue, but they forgot something." He lifted the QCP memo and held it high. "You can't evict honor." The applause didn't erupt, it surged, not clapping but stomping, rising, raw-footed vindication. People stood on chairs, flags were raised. It wasn't a rally, it was a call. The next morning, Reyes received a call from an internal contact. "They're trying to strike a deal with DOJ," she told Cole. The city wants to offer Vexley as the scapegoat to avoid deeper federal investigations. They're offering a quiet resignation, no criminal charges, and limited inquiry. Cole's reaction was cold. So they want to pin this on one man, shut it down, and pretend it never happened. That's the idea. Cole stood still for a long moment. Then we don't accept. He called a press briefing of his own, this time outside the federal courthouse. No slogans, no signs, just him, Maya, Reyes, Griggs, and 2 families who had lost everything. He held up a single folder. "This isn't about Vexley," Cole said. "This is about every system that gave him room to operate. This is about policies disguised as procedure, greed disguised as governance, and cowardice wearing a badge." He paused. "Don't ask us to settle. Ask yourselves why we were forced to fight." Behind him, Reyes added, "I wore the uniform with pride. And when I saw that pride being weaponized against the people who earned it, I chose sides. The press ate it up. But more importantly, the people did too. By evening, a petition with over 100,000 signatures called for a full congressional inquiry. 3 more cities filed motions to audit their own eviction practices, and the Secretary of Veterans Affairs issued a statement. "We are monitoring developments in Los Angeles closely. We affirm the dignity and protection of every American who has served. Any compromise to their housing security is a compromise to national honor." Cole read the headline from his kitchen table, and for the first time in weeks, he allowed himself to feel something close to peace, not because the war was over, but because it had finally been named. The courthouse steps had never seen a crowd like this. It wasn't just veterans, it wasn't just lawyers or families or reporters. It was a nation, gathered in miniature. Men in faded fatigues stood beside nurses holding framed portraits. Students waved small flags. Grandmothers leaned on canes beside young Marines in full dress blues. The people came not for spectacle, they came for judgment. Inside, the courtroom was filled to capacity. Federal marshals lined the walls. A half-dozen legal teams scribbled frantically. On one side sat Maya, Reyes, Griggs, Cole, and David. On the other, the city's legal counsel and Ronald Vexley himself. He looked smaller in person. Gone was the puffed chest and silver-accented uniform. Vexley now wore a grey suit and the practiced expression of a man coached by PR teams and damage control consultants. The judge, a former army officer himself, wasted no time. He began with a stern reminder: this is not a show trial. This is a matter of public trust, and those who wear or once wore the uniform of this country deserve better than pretense. Cole was called to the stand. He stood tall. No suit, no medals, just a dark button-down and the quiet fire that had carried him through war zones, betrayal, and now this. Maya led the questioning. "Mr. Ramirez, can you confirm your status as a Marine veteran?" "Yes, ma'am. United States Marine Corps, enlisted at 18, discharged honorably after 14 years. During your service, were you ever trained to use data to target civilians?" Cole's eyes narrowed. "No, we were trained to protect civilians, to hold the line, not draw new ones against our own people." She slid a printed memo toward the court. "Do you recognize this document?" Cole nodded. "It's the QCP directive. It was used to mark me, my neighbors, fellow veterans." "What did it cost you personally?" Cole looked straight at the judge. "Respect my name, my grandson's peace of mind, but I'm not here for pity. I'm here because if this could happen to me, it already happened to others who can't speak anymore." The silence that followed was loud. Then it was Vexley's turn. His lawyer, a polished man in a blue tie, objected to emotional manipulation and tried to steer the judge toward procedural technicalities, but the judge shut it down. "Mr. Vexley," he said, "you're not here to play semantics. You're here to answer for how your command interpreted justice." The defense faltered. Then Maya played the recording. Vexley's voice, clear as day, outlined preemptive removal of destabilizing figures, minimizing resistance through pressure-based tactics, and finally, they served their country. That doesn't mean they get to own it. The courtroom gasped. Vexley went pale. The judge slammed his gavel. That will be enough. What followed wasn't a trial verdict yet. This was a hearing. But what happened in that room would ripple far beyond it. A federal investigation was opened. Vexley was taken into custody for questioning. Reyes and Griggs were both granted whistleblower protections under federal law. And Cole? Cole didn't celebrate. He walked out of the courtroom the same way he walked into combat, head high, back straight, no illusion of glory, just the steady, quiet weight of duty fulfilled. Outside, the crowd broke into applause, not for victory, but for vindication. Mateo rushed up, hugging his grandfather fiercely. "You did it," he whispered. Cole shook his head. "No, kid, we did it, all of us. And now, we keep going. Because justice, once awakened, doesn't sleep." 3 weeks had passed since the hearing. Vexley had resigned under pressure. Formal charges were pending. The city was forced to open a full audit of all veteran evictions within the last 5 years, and the QCP program had been suspended indefinitely. But Cole didn't follow the headlines anymore. He spent his mornings walking Mateo to school. Then he'd head to a small veteran center nearby, not as a guest, but as an informal mentor. No titles, no ceremony, just coffee, conversation, and quiet counsel. One morning, a young man approached him after a group session. "I saw your speech online," he said, nervous but earnest. "I got out 2 years ago. I've been struggling with everything. Thought I was the only one." "You're not," Cole said gently. "You never were." At home, Mateo had started a project, a digital archive of testimonies from displaced veterans. With Maya's help, he launched a non-profit site, honorguard.org, that accepted submissions, published verified accounts, and offered legal resources for families still fighting their cases. "We've got over 400 stories already," Mateo told his grandfather one night, scrolling through the latest entries, some from Texas, Ohio, even Florida. Cole stared at the screen. "They tried to erase us," he murmured, "and now our names are everywhere." He opened one story, an older man who had lost his home in silence, then found hope in a simple message: "We believe you. We stand with you." That night, Cole stepped outside to his porch. The evening was cool, the stars clear. No sirens, no tension, just the faint sound of a TV somewhere down the block, and the smell of pine from the neighbor's yard. He lit a candle and placed it beside a folded piece of paper. It was the same envelope he had carried in his chest pocket since the day of the hearing. Inside, a letter from a retired general. "What you've done will echo beyond your city, beyond your case. You've reminded this nation what honor looks like, not in battle, but in resistance to injustice. Semper Fi." Cole didn't cry. He just sat with the silence. A different kind now, not the kind born from fear or threat, but from knowing he had spoken when it counted, stood when others shrank, and passed something down to a generation that might never see combat, but would still need courage. Weeks later, the city installed a bronze plaque in front of the Veterans Memorial Hall. It read, "To those who served, and still do, justice is a duty we continue." Cole hadn't asked for it. In fact, when they invited him to the unveiling, he almost didn't go. Not because he didn't care, but because he didn't believe in statues for battles still being fought. But Mateo convinced him. "Not for you," the boy said, "for the others." So Cole stood in the back, behind a sea of unfamiliar faces. Some wore uniforms. Others wore street clothes and worn boots. But all had the same look in their eyes, recognition. After the crowd thinned, a young city official approached him awkwardly. "I know we haven't earned forgiveness," she said, "but I hope we can start with gratitude." Cole offered a quiet nod. Then, without ceremony, he walked over to the plaque, knelt for a moment, and pressed his hand against the metal. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The act was enough. Later that day, back at home, he opened a letter from Maya. She had moved to Washington, D.C., now serving as a policy advisor for a national veterans housing initiative. The letter was short. "You once told me we don't fight for medals, but I've learned we fight for memory, for what must never be allowed to fade. Thank you for making the world remember." Cole read it 3 times, then folded it, placed it in the same envelope as the general's letter, and tucked it away in a wooden box he hadn't opened in years. Inside were photographs, service patches, and one small dog tag. C. Ramirez, USMC Mateo, found him sitting in the backyard later, trimming the lemon tree. "You ever miss it?" the boy asked. "The call?" Cole shrugged. "Some days. The noise, the silence after. But mostly, I miss the ones I left behind." He looked up at his grandson. "But I don't miss who I used to be, because everything I was led to this." Mateo smiled and sat beside him. "No one calls you Sergeant anymore," he said gently. Cole grinned. "They don't have to." That evening, as the sun dipped low and bathed the street in golden light, Cole Ramirez sat with his back straight, his eyes calm, and his legacy not carved in stone, but planted in the hearts of those who watched and followed. The battle had passed, but the honor remained. Some stories end in parades, others end in silence, but the ones that matter most, they end like this, with one man's dignity standing taller than a broken system. Thank you for watching Veteran Biker, where justice isn't loud, but it lasts. If Cole's story moved you or reminded you of someone in your life, tell us below. What would you have done in his place? We'd love to hear your voice. Don't forget to like this video. Hit subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow's story. It might just change how you see the world. And if you're still with us, great. More true stories are waiting right now on your screen. We'll see you there.